What's going on YouTube? It's Tej, back again with another video. Today we're coming at you with yet another 2-round 2024 NFL mock draft. We do have a trade in this mock draft, which is going to be what kicks us off. Real quick before we get started, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, want to see more mock draft content, and of course, leave me your thoughts down below in the comment section. This is my birthday, actually the day you're seeing this Friday, so I may be a little late to see people's comments and respond to them, but I'm hoping, sometime Sunday, Monday. I actually took off from work Monday, so I'll try to do some catch up and try to get back to as many of y'all as I possibly can, but would love to know who your favorite team is, what you think of the mock, who goes too high, who goes too low. Leave me all those thoughts down below. All right, as promised, we're going to kick things off with a trade. To me, New England, they're content with their quarterback situation. Someone who's not, at least in my opinion, they shouldn't be, is the New York Giants. This is a down year for quarterback classes, so this is not going to seem like it's an insane amount for the Giants to give up, 2 firsts, 2 thirds. But the Patriots, you already got a quarterback. It's a weak quarterback class. To get 3, additional top 100 picks, including an extra first-round pick next year. I know there's going to be a lot of Pats fans who say you should get more, and you might, but I still think that's pretty fair. And then that opens up the door for the New York Giants to select Cam Ward, number 1 overall. Right now, he's my QB1. And you got to think, he's only played, he's 5 years of college experience now. But in high school, he was running a wing T option offense. So, as much as, he is this little gutsy gambler, kind of, Favre-esque, type of gunslinger, I think you see the progression year over year, specifically last year to this year. The turnover-worthy plays are starting to come down while still generating those big plays. And sure, some of that's playing on a better team, but even more, they're going to have better talent around you at the NFL level. So, and I think it's just time. Giants go into next offseason. You're going to eat like $19 million in dead cap for Jones, but frees up $22 million in cap space. It's time to turn a new leaf. Would love to see Brian Dable and Joe Shane get the opportunity to draft their guy. And if there is anybody who's going to go number 1 overall as a quarterback, I think Cam Ward is a really solid player to make a case for. All right, to the Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm going to have Travis Hunter be the pick. They could use an extra receiver, which actually we're going to address a little bit later on, so I am kind of double dipping here. But to me, he's just the next most valuable player on the board, two-way value. I'd probably play him 75-25 split, corner to wide receiver. But still, for this team that Brian Thomas Jr. is coming along, now you're telling me you can get red zone packages, third down sets, where you have him and BTJ on the field. That's a step in the right direction. On top of the corner play this year, honestly, the defense from the Jags has been a little disappointing considering who Ryan Nielsen's been the last couple of years and how good of a job he's been as a defensive play caller. So getting him another superstar caliber corner, I think goes a long way. And I think him plus Tyson Campbell, they have a lot of flexibility. 2 guys that can be absolutely shut down in man, but Hunter's ball skills in zone are just so valuable. So love what it does for that team on the outside and the defensive side, plus some offensive juice. All right, we get down to the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to go Mason Graham here. He's just the next highest player on my board right now. Still been such an insane disruptor this year. High-level player against the run, plenty of quicks, play strength, hand usage, all that stuff that you need to see from a pass rush standpoint. He's NFL ready. Brian Brzee, I know he had 4 sacks pretty quick this year, but you look at the PFF grades, pass rush win rate, I don't think the efficiency is totally lining up with those sacks. So, down the stretch, if New Orleans, already made a head coaching change, I could see where this team kind of peters out throughout the rest of the year, and you may see the stats kind of go the same way for Brian Brzee. Edge also in play here, but I just think, like I said, Mason Graham, next highest grade I have on my board here. Would love to get him in the middle of that defensive line, try to bolster that unit. We're going to stick with another Michigan Wolverine, pretty easy one here. J.C. Horn had a hard time staying on the field, and I think that number 2 corner spot is rough right now. And in a perfect world, really, you'd love to have J.C. Horn healthy, but even if he is, by as early as his rookie year, Will Johnson might be better. I know that's a lot to say, and I know a lot of people like J.C. Horn, but he's also the guy who got burnt by Quentin Johnston this year. So, Johnson's had a pretty solid season. All that to say, would love to have that be your 1-2 punch long term. Also, you just have to take into account, is J.C. Horn someone that you do eventually move on from or let walk, just because the timetables may not be lining up. So he may also just be a J.C. Horn replacement as soon as next offseason, really. Clear cut, CB1 for me. He's been banged up. Not going to play the rest of this year as far as I understand. So probably a good professional move. And the game's there. I have no question that he's CB1 in this year's class. All right, let's get to the Cleveland Browns. The Jameis circus in full effect right now. He gets them a crazy win that they probably shouldn't have had if Kyle Hamilton holds on to that pick on that last drive. And then, that last drive, that pick against Hamilton, that looked a lot like what we saw from Jameis against the Chargers. Jesse Minter's a great DC. They have a ton of talent on that side of the ball. Makes you wonder what Brandon Staley was really doing with that Chargers defense. All that to say, quarterback going to be something that the Browns need to address. I would assume they're going to keep Deshaun Watson out all of next year. I think that gives them the ability to move on from his contract at least a year, maybe even too early, and get out from some underneath from some of that guaranteed money. So let's go out and get a rookie contract quarterback. Sanders, to me, someone who comes with a relatively high floor, high processor, very accurate. Not the world's gaudiest arm, but I think smart decision making is going to play in the AFC North, right? I think he's mobile enough. Him and Cam Ward are both not like high end athletes, but they both have functional athleticism. So not really worried about it from that standpoint. I think Sanders here just gives you a guy immediately that can run what Stefanski wants to do, or if it's going to keep being Dorsey as the OC, gives him someone who can do all that. And you already see how this team's picked up post, Winston now the starter. I think Sanders could take him to another level. Then we get on to the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's have some fun. Ashton Jeanty. Look, if you've been around this channel, you know running backs do not go this early in my mock drafts. I think I had Bijan Robinson like 14th overall in the last mock that I put out for that year's draft. Obviously, he goes top 8. Zeke, top 5 pick. Running backs are still coveted, and it's a deep running back class, so that may push Jeanty's value down, but we said the same thing about Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs, and they, one went 8th, one went 12th. So at the end of the day, you're looking to draft awesome football players, right? Especially if you're drafting the top 6. You need a difference maker. Ashton Jeanty has been that so far this year for Boise State. We've only really gotten to see him as a runner, contact balance, looseness, the legs keep churning, plenty of play strength, and like I said, they haven't really tapped in him as a pass catcher as much this year as they did last year. So it's early. I know there's a lot of holes in the Raiders roster. Don't worry, Vegas fans. I'm going to get you a quarterback in the second round. We're going to get you a whole new backfield. But I had some Raiders fans last mock saying, hey, give us Jeanty. Please give us Jeanty. And the more I watch Alexander Madison and Zamir White, the more I totally can get behind why Raiders fans feel that way. All right, let's go on to the New England Patriots. They move back. I'm going to give them Kelvin Banks. Need that left tackle, need that cornerstone guy on the offensive line right now. Right now they have a bunch of okay guys that can maybe stick around. Need a difference maker, especially at left tackle. You protect your third overall investment on this last year's draft in Drake May. Kelvin Banks, as fluid and as good of a pass protector as there is in this year's class. And when he lands in the run game, he's a super, super explosive, hard-hitting difference maker in the run game. I think the consistency is a little, boom bust there. The PFF run block grades aren't great, but then you also look at the big time run block percentage, which is basically their word for you lit a dude up. That's relatively a high percentage. So it's a little, wishy-washy, a little inconsistent there, but I think there's room for him to grow. New England does typically have a great track record of developing these guys. We're obviously post Dante Scarnecchia, so we'll see where that goes down the line, but if you've watched the Patriots this year, they need offensive line help pretty badly. All right, let's get on to the Miami Dolphins. Actually going to stay in the offensive line category. I know this is probably going to be a little early for some people, considering I am drafting Will Campbell here to play left guard. I'm fully saying it. They have Teron Armstead there. They drafted Patrick Paul last year. Wasn't my favorite prospect, but still I think someone they can work with and develop those tools that were certainly there, like those long arms. But the fact of the matter is, Quentin Nelson, Zach Martin, guys that went really high. Yeah, they're guards. The position value is not there, but we knew they'd be slam dunk picks. I think Will Campbell's the best offensive lineman in this class. Shades of what we were talking about Peter Skoronski a few years ago, where it's even if he's a guard, just taking labels and positions out of it and taking away the position value, he's the best offensive lineman in this class. And I think the same is true here for Will Campbell. So go ahead, plug him in at left guard. There's not many things that really can decay this Miami team when they're at their best. Sometimes they get into funk on offensive side, specifically in games where they don't have Tua. I don't know what that's going to look like long term. He's back. He's playing for a time being. I continue to implore that he wears the Guardian cap, but ultimately it is his decision. But in the event that Miami isn't going to go quarterback, because at this point I don't think they are. I don't know. Lots to still be figured out there. Interior offensive line will go a long way to making this offense that much better. And I love the addition of Will Campbell there at 8. All right, let's get on to the Tennessee Titans, team that just traded DeAndre Hopkins. This feels like a match made in heaven here. Tetairoa McMillan, intermediate route running savant, and a great yards after the catch weapon. Big body, great jump ball skills, can be used in the red zone for that. But it's also just the short area burst. He's a good separator, solid release packages. And unfortunately, he's just had to do too much heavy lifting in that Arizona team. You go back to their K-State game. K-State, who doesn't have a great secondary by any stretch, is pretty much just running man coverage, willing to take their losses against Tetairoa McMillan as long as it's not like an 80-yard bomb. and no one else for Arizona could get open. So it's been that type of year for the Wildcats. Been disappointing as someone who had some futures money on him. But McMillan continues to be awesome. I think this is a great pairing with Calvin Ridley, who was starting to pick his play up. And this is how you turn the leaf, move on from DeAndre Hopkins. And no quarterback in this mock. I definitely thought about Gary Nussmeier in the second round for the Tennessee Titans, but we're only going to have 2 quarterbacks go in the first round in this one. And this team could ultimately be one that's kind of in the market for a veteran option. Who becomes available, we don't really know just yet, but time will ultimately kind of give us an idea of who that veteran quarterback might be. Anyways, let's get on to the New York Jets. I know they've taken some first-round swings at edge, but you know, Jermaine Johnson not seeing the field a whole lot, and been banged up. PFF grades weren't great as is, and then you have Will McDonald, who's got a ton of sack production. The pass rush win rate doesn't always line up with that, but he has been uber productive, so I do want to give him that. This has been a team that's tried to keep a healthy stable of edge rush depth. There's not an interior defensive lineman I'd be willing to take at this point. We will get one a little bit later on that comes off the board. But I just don't know if I'm quite there yet with Kenneth Grant. There's a lot that I like about in Grant's game, but I don't know if I'm there with top 10. I'm certainly there with Abdul Carter. So while you're still working to develop Jermaine Johnson and trying to get more out of Will McDonald, at least from like a per down efficiency standpoint, you're getting the sacks, but just making him an overall better and more efficient player to where maybe the sacks won't evaporate down the line. I think adding Abdul Carter and the juice that he plays with, and he's really starting to come along now as an edge rusher. Right now, my edge one in this year's class. Would love to see him added in that stable. But Jets fans, let me know what you would do here, especially Will Campbell off the board. Some of those offensive linemen are gone. Where would you go here at 10? And is Abdul Carter someone you'd like to see added in the mix there in that edge group? All right, to the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously been a disappointing season for Dallas. My preseason hot take of Washington's going to have more wins than Dallas is looking pretty great right now. Couldn't have anticipated a Dak Prescott IR trip or, CD injury. That sounds like he's going to play through it. But all that to say, next year, don't think Mike McCarthy's going to be back, but you extended Dak, you're going to extend CD. Those pieces are still there. I do think they needed a receiver too. Luther Burden can be a field stretcher and kind of replace Brandon Cooks, but ultimately, he butters his bread by winning underneath, making dudes miss in space, being a yak demon. And you already have that with CD, but I think adding one more guy into that mix makes defenses that much more honest. But also CD's a guy who can win at all 3 levels. And honestly, I think the same is true for Luther Burden. So we're adding one more guy. Yes, it feels like the skill sets might be similar, but 2 guys on a field that win at all 3 levels, I can't see where that's a bad thing for this Cowboys offense. All right, let's get on to the Indianapolis Colts next up. We go Malachi Starks. You got Blackman going into the last year of his contract, or playing in the last year of his contract. Nick Cross is starting to pick it back up, starting to see him more on the field, and playing pretty well when he's out there. So, in that cover 3 Gus Bradley scheme, I always thought Nick Cross could be a good center fielder. Could also see where there's a world where they, let him do some more stuff down in the box, and ultimately Malachi Starks becomes that center fielder. That's kind of the beauty in this pick. Even if you do want Nick Cross ultimately to play that singled high, free safety in that cover 3, Malachi Starks can play some nickel for you. If Kenny Moore goes down, he can play some box safety. He can play some robber. He can play man. He can play some. It's kind of hard not to imagine a way where you can get Malachi Starks onto the field. And the secondary is one of the few parts that really, I know the Colts aren't awesome this year, and really it just comes down to, can you develop Anthony Richardson? But outside of quarterback, it's a roster that offensive line's good. I like a lot of the names of receiver when they're healthy. It's really just kind of the secondary that I look at. I'm like, that's a place where you could get better. So we're giving a Malachi Starks here at pick number 12. All right, on to the Cincinnati Bengals. This is where we're going to have Nick Scorton come off the board. A guy who could easily go in the top 10 and wouldn't shock me. Perfect world for the Bengals. And I am recording this before Thursday Night Football, once again, just to say. Perfect world, you'd have Trey Hendrickson partnered up with Nick Scorton, but Hendrickson, an impending free agent, this would soften that blow a good bit. But again, in a perfect world, you'd find a way to get Hendrickson back and then give him a true running mate on the other side. And Nick Scorton, as much as I love Abdul Carter, a lot of that's based off the juice, the first step, things you just can't teach. When it comes to what you can teach these guys, I think Nick Scorton's probably the furthest along of any of these edge rushers. To me, the widest range of move sets, pass rush moves, and probably the guy that if you needed to play right away, could win most reliably with his hands, with his moveset from the edge position. Carter could probably win at the NFL level if he was there, but it would be off first step juice and turning speed to power versus Scorton. I think it's a little bit more in that technician mold, kind of like a Trey Hendrickson. All right, let's get on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. I'm going to actually have another edge rusher come off the board here. James Pierce Jr., just hasn't really fully hit that next step with Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. We've seen some flashes from Yaya Diaby. But ultimately, this defense is bad. I've taken a little bit of a break from corner because I thought they might have something with Zion McCollum. The way that secondary is playing, though, I'm probably going to have to start going back in the corner market. So Benjamin Morrison's certainly in play here, but I want to change it up here and give him James Pierce juice. I don't think this is a combination I've had in any of my mocks. Preseason, a guy that a lot of people were saying top 5, top 10 pick hype. It's a little slow start. SEC play is starting to turn the corner for James Pierce Jr., and he's going to test lights out too. So just one of these guys that you can count on bringing somewhere here, at worst, late first round. But right now, still got him in that mid-first round mix as he started to pick up his play the last couple of weeks, and would certainly be some nice reinforcements for a edge group that needs it right now. All right, to the Seattle Seahawks. Unfortunately, got to stick with the same pick, but I've been getting great feedback from Seahawks fans. They seem to really dig it. Abe Lucas can't stay on the field, and George Fant is not your guy long term. So, Cam Williams been one of the most impressive players in college football. First year starting at Texas, there is still some growing pains there, the flags for sure. But overall, you see the speed, you see the nimbleness on his feet, and you also see the power, right? Not only in run blocking, mauling dudes when he's moving forward, but the weight and the ability to set and use that anchor and pass protection. It's huge. So you're looking at a guy that has the tools and the traits, only has 1 year of starting experience. That's going to scare some teams. Other teams are going to say, this guy's this good already. Just wait till I get my hands on him. So it's going to be hard to tell what team says what about him. But I'm looking at that right tackle spot for Seattle, and yikes, to say the least. And I'm actually not done with the offensive line for Seattle in this mock. All right, to the Los Angeles Rams. We said his name a minute ago. Benjamin Morrison, out for the rest of the year. But prior to the injury, nothing to lead me to feel differently about Benjamin Morrison, how I felt about him coming into the year. Last year, to me, right there with Will Johnson. Will Johnson just brings a bigger frame and a little bit more physicality. But from a coverage standpoint, Morrison, rock solid. It was more the same this year while he was out there. And if you've watched the Rams this year, dude, they just traded Trey White, and he was starting for them. That secondary, low-key, has only gotten weaker. But week in and week out, feels like you're seeing some big games out of receivers against the Rams. So that feels like a common trend. And unfortunately, the corner play, specifically on the outside, has just not been good this year for the Rams. I think Benjamin Morrison starts to turn that around. All right, San Francisco 49ers here at 17. I'm going to go Mykel Williams. The offensive line's been playing pretty good, and I also don't necessarily love the value of the guys at this exact moment on the board. So Mykel Williams, toolsy, kind of freaky, build an edge rusher in a lap, kind of build a bear, but for an edge rusher, the length, the power, and Georgia lets these guys line up a little bit more inside, so you always can't help but wonder, God, if you just let this guy line up wide, if he had that Aiden Hutchinson, that TJ Watt, that type of alignment, what could he do against an offensive tackle, and how efficient would he be getting to the quarterback? Instead, he's kind of more 4-eye inside shade of the tackle, so it's a harder assignment. He's also missed time this year with injuries, so that complicates it. That being said, San Francisco's got the best defensive line coach in the NFL for my money, and to give him this toolsy type of prospect, especially at a time where it's kind of Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave's out for the rest of the year, but when he's healthy, it's Bosa and Hargrave, and the rest of that crew doesn't really impress me. But especially now, it's Bosa and friends just trying to make by, and really it's just Bosa pulling a lot of that weight there. So would love to see them get some reinforcements on that defensive line. Mykel Williams, a really fun prospect and a high upside prospect to give to that defensive line. Chicago Bears, this is where we're going to have Kenneth Grant come off the board. The difference between 18 and 10 is pretty big. So this is where I feel comfortable with Kenneth Grant come off the board. High-level run defender, Bruce Feldman Freaks List honoree, and you're seeing some juice there as a pass rusher, about a 73, low 70s PFF grade as a pass rusher. But you see the juice, you see the power, you see the speed, you see all those athletic traits that make it something that's worth exploring. And it almost just feels, not to say he's the first-round version of Gervon Dexter, but Dexter, this guy, okay, maybe there's something there as a pass rusher, ended off the year pretty good against the run, big-bodied, really freaky athlete for someone that big. There are some similarities there, and I do wonder if they're just like, hey, worst comes to worst, these two guys coexist on the inside. Let's see if we can make this work. But that 3-tech pivotal for Matt Eberflus's defense is, that being said, if we think Matt Eberflus is coming back next year, I would probably err on the side of most Bears fans right now and saying, no shot that's happening. But either way, still think interior defensive line's a spot where they can get better. And if Eberflus is back, this could be the guy that kind of cracks the code and gives him that pivotal 3-tech that he's been looking for. To the Denver Broncos, I'm going to go Colston Loveland in this one. We're going to actually go a couple of pass catchers for the Broncos, because when Bo Nix catches a touchdown last week, and it's like, hold up, wait a minute. Does he have the best ball skills in the roster? I mean, I'm like being facetious when I say that, because Cortland Sutton didn't totally disappear, and he almost got in the end zone in that last drive. But that being said, besides Cortland Sutton, it's makes you think. So, yeah, some reinforcements much needed there. I think Colston Loveland's a much needed upgrade as a pass catcher over guys like Adam Troutman, who's fine, but I think Loveland can bring a little bit more there to the table. And he's also a solid blocker. I know the Michigan stats aren't going to be great, but that passing attack in Michigan is just in utter mess right now. So the production won't tell the story. Loveland's a really good football player and should be somewhere in this mid to late first round mix. Arizona Cardinals are up next here at 20. We're going to have a couple of interior defensive linemen come off the board here, back-to-back picks. I'm going to go Walter Nolan. He's got a big game this upcoming weekend, so we're going to see where his stock goes after this Saturday. But looking like a guy who was one of the top recruits coming out of high school, right? And a 5-star who lands at Texas A&M, doesn't really live up to it. Now we're seeing what that potential was, and he's been awesome as a run defender, and kind of like Kenneth Grant, you're really starting to see what he could do as an athlete and bring that juice to the pass rush game. And honestly, smaller sample size, especially considering like Grant played last year. Nolan didn't play that well last year at all. Sample size a little bit bigger for Grant, but I think for what we've seen this year, I'd be probably a little bit quicker to buy into Nolan as a pass rusher. Again, we'll still see where the rest of the year goes. Still a lot of football left to be played. But I think throwing him into the middle of that defensive line, you got Darius Robinson going to move all around. Just made a trade for Baron Browning, partner him up with B.J. Ojolari next year at the edge spot. I think you might be cooking there if you're the Arizona Cardinals defensive line. The next interior defensive lineman, I'm going to go Deion Walker. The year hasn't been as awesome. It's been more good than great. When coming into the season, we were kind of thinking, hey, great year, puts this guy probably in the top 10. Hasn't been that year for Deion Walker, unfortunately. But still, I think that interior 3, if you're in your base 3-4, that interior 3 right now for the Chargers could use some reinforcements. Morgan Fox is a good player, but the rest of those guys are just kind of at best. And Walker's athletic enough to where you might be able to get away with not just playing him at nose, you can play him at 3 tech, so I do think there's some versatility where you line him up across that defensive line if there's pieces there currently that you want to keep around. But even if this year's been a little disappointing, I think we're going to get to the combine and we're going to be like, dude, this guy's 367 running what? He jumped what? He bench pressed this too? I think he's going to become one of those guys that we're talking about at the combine and be like, this doesn't happen all that often. Even though we say that every year, it feels like it's Jordan Davis, then it's Kalijah Kancey in a different mold, and then it's just Devondre Sweat last year. It's always a little something different. Byron Murphy last year, different body types again. But nevertheless, I do think we're going to have that same narrative around Deion Walker. Big guy that's just that athletic. Someone's going to take a shot on him. And I do think that interior defensive line for the Chargers could use some reinforcements. And if there's anybody who could take that step from good to great, Jim Harbaugh is a great candidate. Jesse Minter also, as the defensive coordinator, is a great candidate for Walker to get Walker to take that step forward. All right, Atlanta Falcons are up next. Edge, how many mock drafts? How many years have we gone now as mock drafters saying the Falcons need an edge rusher, so let's get him one. And I'm going to give him just that, LT Overton. He's not a defensive lineman. If anything, they say that because Bama, just like Georgia, you tend to line up inside shade. Will Anderson had the same ththing working against him when he was coming out of Dallas Turner last year at times. So LT Overton's an edge, and he's got a ton of first step juice, and I just love that quicks. And a little bit bigger, too, than some of the other edge rushers that we have available, right? Not necessarily Sawyer or Tuamaloau, but a little bit bigger than someone like an Ezraku or an Uman Mielen, or even someone like Dennis Sutton. They might be about the same size, at least what they're officially weighted at. We'll, of course, see how that changes once we get to the combine. But, again, how many years have we been talking about the Falcons need edge rush? They need that juice. They need an extra guy there. And it's still a team that's not – they may have a decent amount of pressures. They may not be last in the league there, but they're towards the bottom of the league and turning that into sacks, right? So we're just looking for a finisher here. Throw one more guy in the mix. Also, no guarantee they get Judon, signed up and locked up. So, yeah, edge, big time need there for the Falcons. I like the value of LT Overton as a late first round type of guy. All right, let's get on to the Green Bay Packers. Siobhan Revell's going to be the pick here. I see man coverage skill sets written all over this dude. Yes, he's out for the year, but with his schedule, you were going to feel the same way about him that you did coming into the season, in my opinion. But size, speed, plus crazy ball skills. I'm seeing a fit for that new defense there in Green Bay that is very man-heavy in coverage, and it's also going to throw in some cover 3, but it's a lot of single high, guys on an island. So I think Siobhan Revell, opposite of Jair Alexander, now we're talking. And ultimately, it's just been disappointing. Eric Stokes hasn't been that great, and it almost makes you wonder. Mike Renner tweets this out, it feels like once a week. What if, like Tyson Campbell and Eric Stokes, those picks are swapped? Who knows if Campbell gets the same development, but his skill set in this Jeff Hafley man-heavy defense with Jair Alexander, sure, it would be a lot of fun to watch. Wish we could, but that's for another time and a different hypothetical video, I guess. But Siobhan Revell, would love to see him as that other outside corner. To the Baltimore Ravens, next up at 24. I'm going to go with Jalen Walker here. Been much more impressed with the edge, the pass rush reps than the true off-ball stuff. And I do think this is a team that can kind of take advantage of that skill set, be able to make that transition a little bit easier. They're also leaning on to Kyle Van Noy to be this kind of like hybrid, schemed-up pressure guy. Why not draft an off-ball linebacker who's also a great pass rusher to be that kind of hybrid, schemed-up guy? at least for year one. I also think there's an opportunity for Jalen Walker to continue to grow as pass rusher, and who knows, he could become their next great edge rusher. And also, this is a Baltimore team, kind of like Pittsburgh. They've been running this 3-4 that's like almost the same as the Ravens. This iteration, the Ravens didn't exist, obviously, prior to 1999. But like, they kind of took on that same Pittsburgh Steelers 3-4 old school, steel curtain kind of look. And Jalen Walker, to me, again, with his ability to drop into coverage. Again, I like the edge rush stuff a lot more, but still from an edge spot to be able to drop into coverage is a valuable skill set for defense that is very versatile, very varied in its looks, for lack of better words. So I actually kind of like that fit a lot, and I do think late first round is certainly in the cards for Jalen Walker. All right, let's get on to the Houston Texans here at 25. Tate Ratledge is going to be the pick. If you've been watching the Texans lately, oh my, it has been rough. Specifically for that interior offensive line from a pass protection standpoint. Tate Ratledge missed some time, got hurt in the Kentucky game, if memory serves. Came back this last week and looked like Tate Ratledge. Like he didn't miss a beat. So love specifically what he brings as a pass protector, but also really smooth moving in the run game. So I think he's a good fit for Slowick if he's still there as the OC. Patched up that interior offensive line a ton because at this point it's pretty clear Kenyon Green's just not a fit for that wide zone stuff. He's also been a liability in pass protection, so it's time to start looking for a replacement. I think that's exactly what Tate Ratledge is. All right, let's get on the Philadelphia Eagles here. I don't know if this is like too Galaxy brain. I might be overthinking it here. I'm gonna go Josh Simmons. He is one of my next highest graded tackles available. Let me just double check that. Him or Wyatt Milam, but I like Milam a lot. But Simmons, his first year at Ohio State, played right tackle, then transitioned over to left. So we would be asking him to flip back over to right, but I find it easier to ask someone who has previously done that to switch back than asking Wyatt Milam to do that when he's never done it. So, that's the plan in place here. You draft Josh Simmons, you flip him over to right tackle, let him sit behind Lane Johnson for a year, boom. Then he's your Lane Johnson heir apparent. Also, you get into a spot where you are now, Jordan Mailata's out for the year. Yeah, you'd be having to ask him to flip back to left tackle, maybe take some time, but in the event of a Mailata injury, it is nice to have that extra insurance. This is totally Howie Roseman, right? Win in the trenches. Tackles and edge rushers. Feels like that's all this man is drafted in the first round. So totally fits that MO, and it gives him some nice depth at a position that, Lane Johnson can't play forever. Ooh, now Mailata's banged up. Might not be bad to add one more guy into that room. To the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm going to go Jahdae Barron. The year he's had, man, I think he's a first rounder, and he comes with an insane amount of versatility. I think Beanie Bishop's probably going to stave off Cam Sutton for that nickel spot. We'll see. Sutton might take over outside. He's also got plenty of other things going on in his world that he should probably focus on. But Jahdae Barron kind of gives him that same versatility, inside-out flex, depending on what you want to do with Beanie Bishop next year. Is Dante Jackson coming back? I also think Jahdae Barron could just be better than Dante Jackson. A lot of flex. He's also played some safety. So we're gonna get a safety in the second round. But in the event that Pittsburgh didn't do that, could also be like an interesting Deshaun Elliott replacement. I don't hate the idea of that either. So a lot of flexibility here with this pick for the Steelers secondary that I think next year we're going to start to see. Like right now they're playing really good, and I think a lot of that's pass rush plus Joey Porter Jr. being a really good player. But down the stretch this year, I think you might start to see those other holes, specifically Dante Jackson, really start to come to light. Let's get on to the Minnesota Vikings here. I'm going to have TJ Sanders be the pick. Man, he looked awesome last week. There's been a couple of different edge rushers I've snuck in the first round here. Derek Harmon. But Sanders, to me, a little bit better of a run defender, a little bit bigger. So I like that from the run game standpoint. But also I just think about Flores, man, what he's getting out of these edge rushers and scheming up pressures and keeping offenses on their toes. And what if he had a guy who could get from point A to point B from the single quickest path on the field possible? What if we gave this team a true disruptor from the inside? And I think TJ Sanders and his first step get off, plus the power he has, all that is totally there in his skill set. We're talking late first round. I will say, once we got to the Broncos pick, maybe at 19, this is a year's class where that late first round window, to me, these guys, it's like, I don't necessarily love you as a late first rounder, but feel better about you as somewhere in the second. That's kind of where this class is. Unfortunately, it kind of feels more like an NBA draft. You get to the back half of the first round, you're like, I guess, sure. Which is unfortunate, but that's why we're doing second rounds in these videos, where I feel like the value lines up a little bit more. So TJ Sanders may be a little bit higher for some here, but at the same time, position of need. I think he's been awesome this year. And I just think about what he could do for that Brian Flores defense and just getting that one last thing they're missing. Plus what he does as a run defender. They've really been kind of pushed around at that 1 and 3 tech spot, so I think Sanders could certainly help in that regard. Not the Minnesota Vikings. It is the Washington Commanders up next. This one's a fun one because I've been going corner for a while, and then I think last mock I was even kind of kicking the tires on a Lattimore trade to Washington, and then they make it happen, And now I want them to take that next step forward. Marshawn Lattimore is only 28. You could have him, let's just say, for the next 3 years as your CB1. Fit in that man coverage heavy defense. As a man coverage specialist, go get another one. Go get another one. Whether it's Siobhan Revell falling in your lap or it's Decario Davis in this case, make it happen. 6'4", long arms, great in man press situations. That's ultimately what Dan Quinn has kind of become. It's interesting. He was once, Legion of Boom, cover 3 guy in Seattle. Same thing in kind of in Atlanta. Starts to add a little bit more quarters when he gets to Dallas, and then all of a sudden it's like, we're going to play man press. Forget about this. Man press, we're going to scheme up pressure. And he's bringing that to Washington, so I'd love to see. Yeah, you got Lattimore. But you could also improve that CB2 spot. And Decario Davis as a man coverage running mate with Marshawn Lattimore, I am stoked. Like just the thought of that. So I would love to see Washington be able to make something like that happen. Buffalo Bills, we'll see what happens with Von Miller this upcoming offseason. But Princely Umanmielen, another guy who looked awesome last week. Super bendy, enough play strength to go through the body of a tackle. First step juice is there. I think the hand placement can get a little bit better, but ultimately it's not terrible either. And like I said, pretty good, solid with power. Not a total liability against the run. 255 pounds feels about right for his frame, so we'll see if that sticks once we get to the combine. I like this as a nice little Von Miller contingency just in case something happens there this offseason. He retires, they move on from him, whatever. Or just even one more guy into that mix because you don't know what's going to happen with Miller. Even if he's there, he could eventually decline again. Or AJ Epinesa gets hurt, whatever. Ultimately, I think Greg Rousseau plus Princely Umanmielen, that's kind of the tandem I have in mind. I love that 1-2 punch. Guys who can win with length on one side, guys who can win with bend on the other. Ooh, sign me up for that. Detroit Lions are up next. I'm going to go Josiah Stewart, and he might be a little bit more of a second-round guy. I've heard some people raise concerns about his weight and what that might mean for the run game. I hear you. Right now I think he's listed at like 245, which probably means he's closer to 238 or something like that. But if he's able to add a little bit more, I'm okay with this. And he's also not quite as short, and the arms aren't quite as short as someone like a James Houston. So I do think he has a little bit more 3-down value than someone like a Houston does for this Lions team. But nevertheless, just like one more Michigan guy, that type of first step on the other side of former Michigan Wolverine, Aiden Hutchinson, and that killer spin move. 2 guys that can play lightning quick. Nobody has a better pass rush win rate in college football this year than Josiah Stewart. Those 2 guys getting after the quarterback. The secondary's been a little up and down. They also play like a tough style of defense, a lot of man coverage. But I think that edge rush tandem makes the back end look that much better. Let's get on to the Kansas City Chiefs to round out this first round. I'm going to go with Ariante Ursary, left tackle for sure. And that would mean Wanya Morris, Kingsley Suamataia both flip over to the right side, / one of them becomes a swing tackle. But this... Yes, it's a left tackle for a 3rd year in a row. But, third round, second round, first round, kind of building up this progression. But at the end of the day, I think you're also going to want to move on from Juwan Taylor, Kingsley Suamataia, college experience at right tackle. Hopefully you coach him up. He takes over that right tackle spot. If not, you literally trained Wanya Morris to play right tackle. That first year, he did end up playing some left tackle because of Donovan Smith's injury, but you could also see where he goes back over that right side if they move on from Taylor. So let those previous tackle projects battle it out for right tackle. I think Ariante Ursary right here, at the end of the first round at left tackle, makes a lot of sense. He's really started to pick it up. First couple of weeks of the year were a little slow, but he's been rock solid ever since. And I say this all the time. If you're the Chiefs, there's 2 things that could completely end your season. 3 things. One's Patrick Mahomes' injury. But aside from that, it's debilitating injuries on the offensive line. We already saw that in one Super Bowl. Or debilitating injuries to the secondary that you just can't overcome because teams nonstop are able to create separation and air it out on you, and then Pat Mahomes having to play like Superman. Those to me are the 2 things that are like that could kill your season pretty much instantly, aside from, of course, a Pat Mahomes injury. So more investments in offensive line to me is never a bad idea for this team that, they're the team with a target on your back. Don't let teams be able to take that shot. All right, let's go on to the second round here. We actually have a lot of good players that are still available. Isaiah Bond. Like I said, we took Travis Hunter earlier, but Isaiah Bond and Travis Hunter, 2 different types of receivers when they're both out there. So, BTJ is your kind of number 1. Bond is your Y who's, in motion, avoiding press, end arounds, jet sweeps, deep shots, of course. The hands have been a lot more reliable this year. And then Travis Hunter, you can play him outside, you can play him in the slot, you can do a lot of fun things there in those money downs, things you have got to have. Travis Hunter's out there as well. So all of a sudden with 2 picks, it's like, yeah, it's Brian Thomas Jr. and no one else. Holy crap, where all these weapons come from? Not to mention, I'm also a pretty big Parker Washington fan. I have him in Dynasty, so hoping the rest of the year he shows what he can bring to the table. But I like the idea of Isaiah Bond. Plus, first time he's fell in the second round in any of my mocks, so I had to make it a priority pick there. Let's get on to the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to have them draft another Ohio State receiver, Emeka Egbuka. He's not the same as Chris Olave. And yes, this also means like the Saints no quarterback. I get that. Could have gone Carson Beck here, but they might ultimately just try to see what Rattler has for a year. I don't know. I know Derek Carr's throwing hospital balls. Michael Thomas has let us all know. But we can also just see if you watch football. With that being said, Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, those are both like get the ball down the field, deep shot-oriented guys. I think Egbuka could give this offense a few more layups. Just a guy from the slot, win underneath, eats up space against zone. Also a guy that's a willing blocker, which I think goes a long way. And as you're kind of rebuilding this team, you're going to be setting a new culture. Adding a guy that is, of that no block, no rock life, I think is a good step to adding into that. Let's go on to the Chicago Bears. This feels like a pick I make in every mock, and I don't really mean to, but damn, is Jack Sawyer destined to be a Chicago Bear in my eyes? He might be. To me, he really does feel like that. I mean, nickel's the new base, but like old school 4-3 kind of D-end, opposite of Montez Sweat, has the body build for that, play strength, also a good athlete, very solid against the run, and we're seeing it this year where he's taking that pass rush game to another level. So love the idea of him being that edge rusher opposite of Montez Sweat for the Bears. Next up is the Cleveland Browns. We're going to go with Wyatt Milam here. I thought about having him be the pick for the Kansas City Chiefs in a lot of ways. Like as good as Ursery's been, Wyatt Milam might be the best left tackle in college football right now. And I'm saying that about Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell, but Wyatt Milam, not nearly the level of competition as Texas and LSU, albeit he's been awesome this year. And he's certainly playing his way into the first round mix. Here he slips a little bit past that. This would be a home run pick here for the Browns. You just drafted a quarterback. Jedrick Wills, impending free agent. Don't really have that long-term answer at left tackle. Let's go draft a guy who's been awesome this year, and Wyatt Milam. Let's get on to the Vegas Raiders. As promised, we're going to go quarterback. It's going to be Jalen Milroe, so it's a whole new backfield. It's just hard to get a tell for what they would want to do. Obviously, new offensive staff now in there. It's funny, last mock I'm saying, Luke Getsy's not going to be the OC next year. Shoot, he's not going to be the OC. It's up a week, so a little crazy that I was that right, and a little bit faster than even I thought. But so I don't know if they want that mobile quarterback. It didn't really work with Getsy. I don't know if Norv and Scott Turner really want to do that, or if they want a pocket passer. So it could be Carson Beck. Raiders fans, let me know what you would do here. If this is the board, would you go Ewers? Would you go back? Would you go Milroe? To me, I'm going to go Milroe, bank on the tools, see if you can try to develop him. And having Ashton Jeanty in the backfield, oh my God, that read option game is going to go crazy for the Raiders if it did play out something like this. To the New York Giants, here at pick number 38, this is a team that actually, compared to Wink Martindale last year to this year, they might have the highest drop-off of man coverage usage rate. I have to double-check that. But simply said, they're playing a whole lot more zone coverage. And one of the best zone coverage corners in college football this year has been Jabbar Muhammad, north of an 80 PFF zone coverage grade. So I like that as a number 2 corner. Realistically, low-key might end up being cornerback 1. As much as I like Deonte Banks, to this point, that's been a miss. And also, he's getting benched mid-game when he's getting hurdled by Najee Harris because of effort concerns from the week before. Oh, my gosh. Feels like a bit of a mess. Feels like someone they might ultimately move on from low-key, try to give him a new start, kind of fresh start somewhere else. But either way, Jabbar Muhammad is some reinforcements, whether it's CB1, CB2, this team needs to add to that cornerback room desperately. All right, pick number 39, the New England Patriots. We're going to give them that wide receiver, Trey Harris. It does feel like a receiver room that's made up of twos and a bunch of complimentary guys. And Trey Harris, to me, a little bit more of that. He's kind of that big, got the frame you want, but he's a field stretcher. He's just going to work down the field. That's the name of his game. But that being said, his downfield vertical ability is certainly higher than Tyquan Thornton, who's just fast. He's just a football player who's fast. Trey Harris, I think, brings a lot more deep route running ability, better hands too. And I think what you could do with his offense, if he opens it up over the top, Jalen Polk can remember how to play wide receiver, Javon Baker can get on the field, those two guys work in the underneath, and Baker can stretch the field too, Bama transfer, UCF pick, 4th round last year. He can stretch the field a little bit, but ultimately Polk and Baker working underneath, Pop Douglas in that mix too. Harris, I think, by pushing safeties back, make those guys that much more efficient. Plus, with what Drake May can do as a runner too, right? Push those safeties back, make and run, that much more real estate for him to take advantage of. All right, Tennessee Titans here at pick number 40. We're going to go offensive line now. Let's go Blake Miller. He's the right tackle for Clemson, so this one worked out perfectly for me. Nicholas Petit-Frere, it's not working. And if you have Bill Callahan as your offensive line coach and it still ain't working, that's a pretty sounding indictment. That's not a great place to be. So let's go ahead and try to draft a guy who's been rock solid 2 years in a row, like the movement skills, 6'6", 315, checks a lot of boxes. I think that, at this point, it's time to reset that right tackle position. Go get a guy that's already been playing it at college, put him in the hands of Bill Callahan, and it's hard to imagine it being, I say this with all due respect, for someone I liked coming out of college, coming out of Ohio State. It's hard to imagine being any worse than Nicholas Petit-Frere right now. All right, let's get on to the Miami Dolphins here at pick number 41. This is where we're going to have Derek Harmon come off the board. Zach Sealer now out for the rest of the year, so they're really missing Christian Wilkins right now. But even with Steeler out there, he's a really good run defender, solid pass rusher, one of the game's most underrated players. But even then, you still needed one other guy to probably run up with him and be that, kind of the running mate right there on the inside. So with or without Zach Steeler, I think this would have been a good pick. And certainly now with Zach Steeler having a big injury, we'll see what he looks like, how soon he can come back next year. Derek Harmon makes all the more sense. Might be a little light in the shorts, so to speak. Might be not the best run defender in the NFL, and that may scare some teams. Maybe that puts him in the second round kind of mix because he's not going to anchor against the run. But with the quicks, and it's also cooled off. I will say the last couple of weeks, the pass rush tape hasn't been as impressive. But that being said, still nimble, still light, good hand usage too, a variety of moves that he can go to. You can still see the pass rush potential there. And right now, Miami looking for anything, especially considering, again, Zach Steeler out for the rest of the year. New York Jets, let's go ahead and get Aaron Rodgers, assuming it's Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams back for another year. Tyler Warren, let's go get him another weapon. Him and Harold Fannin, man, it's going to be back and forth for that tight end 2 spot. I also like Luke Lachey. I like Helm from Texas, too. Like, it's a solid tight end group, honestly. But Tyler Warren to me right now, tight end 2, just so many different things he could do. And multiple times this year, he's put Penn State on his back. And then you get to the Ohio State game, and what happens when they can't put Tyler Warren, or when Tyler Warren can't put Penn State on his back because they're playing too high and they're taking away those seam shots. Well, Penn State doesn't score touchdowns. And that's literally what happened against Ohio State. So, let's go ahead and get Tyler Warren in the mix. Much more dynamic of a player than Tyler Conklin. So, we'd like to see what that adds to this offense. Again, Aaron Rodgers there isn't typically asked his tight ends to do much. Rookie tight ends do not always his favorite thing. But even if it's just running the seam, Warren way better than Tyler Conklin just because athletic juice is way in the favor of Warren compared to Conklin. All right, let's get on to Dallas here at pick number 43. We didn't go running back first round, so this one's easy. Marion Hampton in the second round. This guy, 5 straight 100-yard games for UNC. He has just been awesome to watch so far this year. North Carolina. Been kind of back and forth between him and Judkins, my RB2. To me, they're just kind of like two different guys. More home run ability with Judkins. More just put your shoulder through a dude, and we're going to pick up 5 yards at a time. Get on my back, here we go. That's a little bit more Hampton. So it kind of comes down to the play style. So you could easily go Judkins here. Also, probably a little bit more pass game value there for Judkins than Hampton. That being said, I just got to tip the cap for Hampton. He's been awesome the last couple of weeks for UNC, really kind of putting that offense on his back. And Dallas needs a running back big time right now. Let's get on to, and that's not to totally indict Rico Dowdle. And honestly, that fit. Rico Dowdle kind of taking over his pass catching duties. That might ultimately make for a better combination than Amari and Hampton, kind of early downs between the tackles, power game element, Dowdle, get wide of the tackle, let's be the pass catcher. It almost could work out well as a nice little 1-2 punch. Let's get on to the Cincinnati Bengals here at 44. I know 2 guys I would like to see one more LSU receiver in that mix. But let's go Kyron Lacy. He's been really impressive this year. It's going to come down to the 40. That's going to kind of dictate how early he goes. I'm expecting somewhere there in the mid 4.5s, maybe even a tick below that. 4.53 is kind of what I'm holding out for. 4.5 flat would be awesome. But as long as it's not like disastrously bad, I think this guy's going to go somewhere in the second round. Really sharp route runner. Can play that X. Got prototypical size, 6'2", 217. Sure hands. Again, long speed may not be in question, but I think the short underneath stuff, you see the route running, it's there. Can box out DBs too. Just does a lot of the little things. And I think if you lose Higgins, I think Kyron Lacy makes it easier to move Jamar Chase around, right? Like, you basically just make Kyron Lacy your sacrificial X. He's going to line up on the line of scrimmage. He's going to face the most man coverage. That's going to let Jamar Chase get into motion. We're going to play him in the slot. You can also do the same things with Andre Yoshivas, who I don't really love against press coverage. So I think this kind of frees up those other 2 guys to become more efficient versions of themselves. And, I mean, Jamar Chase is great as is. But if you can free him up and get him more slot opportunities, I think he could have a CeeDee Lamb type of offensive player of the year type of season that we saw last year from CeeDee. Anyways, Tampa Bay Buccaneers next up here at 45. I'm going to go Denzel Burke. As noted earlier, quarterback situation right now on Tampa is a disaster. This is a team that does want to play a decent amount of man coverage, and they want to blitz. They want to get after you. This year, middle of the pack when it comes to man coverage versus zone coverage rates, it's been relatively balanced. Denzel Burke been much better in zone this year, but even then, I do worry about the long speed, the catch-up recovery speed, especially against Oregon. You really saw Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, both those guys getting the best of them. So long speed certainly in question. That's not great, but hey, we already gave Tampa a pass rusher in this class. We're not going to let the quarterback hold the ball for 5 seconds. We're not going to let guys get behind us. And maybe Denzel Burke's battling injury, because this year he has taken a step back, and he's playing more like he was 2 years ago when he was injured. So, I'm kind of looking at 2023, and I'm like, God, that's what we want. That's the Denzel Burke that I want to see in the first round, second round mix. But 2024, 2022 have been leaving some meat on the bone, to say the least. So hopefully he can turn around the rest of the year, or maybe we'll find out there's some injury concerns that And that's the reason why he's been a little disappointing this season. Seattle Seahawks, as promised, I'm not done on that offensive line. Jonas Savaiinaea, that's your right guard of the future. And then we're going to play Christian Haynes at left guard, and then we'll figure out center. Oluwatimi was someone I liked coming out of Michigan. That, or you bring back Connor Williams. He's on a 1-year deal, so we can figure out center. Could have gone center here too as well, but Jonas Savaiinaea right next to Cam Williams. And Savaiinaea, ultimately, I think arm length's probably going to kick him inside. But he's been awesome this year as a pass protector. I do think he could get better against the run. That's another concern I have about moving him inside, right? Like, if power profile's not in his game, he goes from seeing edge rushers who are, let's just say, 250 to 270, to now where he's facing interior defensive linemen who are 280 to 325. So like, if power element's not there, like that's a little concerning. But again, we'll see what the arm length test styled measure out at, and we'll see what the bench press and all those little things look like for Savaiinaea. But for right now, it's a wide zone scheme. Love the idea of the movement skills of Savaiinaea at guard next to Cameron Williams, who's been, again, one of the standout players so far this year and the college football season. So retool that right side of the offensive line, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do with Geno long term and DK and yada, yada, yada. But right now, mission is for this mock, fix that offensive line for Seattle. All right, Indianapolis Colts here at 47. This is where I'm going to have Tyleik Williams come off the board. And this is just some stuff that I've been talking about in previous videos. This is your Grover Stewart contingent. And actually, Grover Stewart played pretty well. Had some splash plays, at least against the Vikings. But he is going into his age 32 season next year, going to have a pretty sizable cap hit. Could just be someone who logically makes sense to move on from. In the event they do that, I think Tyleik Williams brings a lot of that same skill set, big body, physical run stopper. So I like that fit a good bit there with the Indianapolis Colts. All right, let's get on to the San Francisco 49ers now. I'm going to go Logan Jones. He's pretty far down here, but to me, been one of the most impressive centers in college football so far this season. I like the movement skills. I like the grip strength. He's got that wrestling background. All checks out to me. In center, they have a couple of pieces on that offensive line that are on expiring deals, but Jake Brendel on a 1-year contract. So I just think, hey, let's plug and play Logan Jones in that spot. And honestly, you could bring back Brendel as just extra guard depth, especially considering, they do have some pieces there that are a little bit older on the inside. Slash guys who have already battled injuries. So wouldn't be bad to have him back for a cheap, depth piece, but I do think it's a spot where they can get better. And I think Logan Jones can be a guy that you start hearing more and more conversations about, specifically in a class where it's like, who's that best center? Logan Jones may be the cream that rises to the top. Let's get to the Chicago Bears then here at pick number 49. We're going to go into your offensive line. You almost have to, right? Like, if you've watched the Bears, center and right guard have just been nonstop. I don't want to say nonstop. Matt Pryor's definitely played better than Nate Davis, but still, guard center, one of those two spots has got to be the pick here. We just went Logan Jones. Maybe next time I'll give that to the Bears. But in this case, we're going to give him Tyler Booker. That's going to be your one of your guards. You can move Tevin Jenkins over to the right side, or you just keep Booker at the position he's playing right now at right guard. He's been a better pass protector than run blocker, but, I think that's something that can come along at the next level. And actually, it's kind of funny. Sometimes Charles Cross is actually a good example of this. And not that Cross has been bad in pass protection this year, but he came out with like a lot of question marks on what he could be as a run blocker. But some of my favorite blocks from Charles Cross this year have been in, on a run play. So it's like, how do you flip that profile? It's amazing. Sometimes it happens, and if you're a Bears fan, you're kind of hoping the same thing here with Tyler Booker. And ultimately, it comes down to coaching too, right? Like, what is Alabama prioritizing? What would this hypothetical new coaching staff and new offensive line coach for Chicago prioritize? Could they even out that split? I think that's certainly a possibility. All right, Carolina Panthers here at 50. Little bit different here, but obviously they move on from Deontay Johnson. They have a couple of guys. Jalen Coker put me in the... actually, I'm not going to say what his fan base is called. I don't know if that's going to get me demonetized, so I'm not going to say it. But if you know, you know. And then also like Xavier Legette, another guy, body type-wise, certainly could be an X-receiver. So I don't love Evan Stewart or Tez Johnson, and honestly, either one here. I think in my notes, I had Tez Johnson. So sorry, this was supposed to be Tez Johnson, but either way, either one of those Oregon receivers. Again, I do personally like Tez a little bit more, but Tez is also 10 pounds lighter, and that's kind of my problem with both these guys. I don't know how they're going to be able to battle through contact down the field, but in a situation where you already have an X receiver, you can get these guys in motion, keep them off press coverage. Then we could be talking about, okay, it's a lightning quick receiver who can certainly get open deep down the field as a polished route runner, and as long as he doesn't battle through contact, he's more than likely to come down with the catch. So Tez Johnson was the original, again, pick. I apologize, I made a little bit of a slip up there, but him or Evan Stewart, let me know which Oregon receiver you like more. They were going to be the pick here for Carolina as that Y. Get him in motion, get him off the line of scrimmage, and see if we can't scheme these guys open as complements to Legette or Jalen Coker. All right, Arizona Cardinals are up. Next, I'm going to go Emory Jones Jr. here. Whether it's at guard or tackle, I don't think Jonah Williams is their long-term piece. I don't think their current fixture at right guard. Also, Will Hernandez is out for the rest of the year. So question marks there on the offensive line long term, other than left tackle, where Paris Johnson Jr. looks awesome. My top offensive tackle of that year's class, by the way. But Jones probably going to move inside to guard, it sounds like. In that case, I'm fine with drafting a absolute mauler in the run game here in the middle of the second round. Really adds to that Drew Petzing run game, which is already awesome. I love what Drew Petzing's doing in the run game, but I think Emory Jones leading the way on that right side makes it that much more potent. As promised, I'm going to go pass catchers here for the Broncos. I was impressed with the Bo Nix touchdown, but it also did raise concerns. You also have to factor in, there were already rumors about Courtland Sutton going into this year, and then some more throughout the season, and then we get to the deadline, and he's kind of one of those names. Is he going to go? Is he going to stay? And ultimately, I think he might have been moved on from if they had anybody else they could, play, but they're already leaning into, 7th round rookies, so to get significant playing time. So they're not really in a position to move off from Courtland Sutton. But if they had any more depth there, I think they probably would have. And maybe he would have been the guy the Steelers traded for instead of Mike Williams. Who's to say? But in the event they do move on from Courtland Sutton this offseason, I like A.U. Manor. A lot of the same skill set there. Body type's pretty similar as well. But there's also a world where they could coexist, and maybe Manor's just an upgraded first-round version of LA. I could also see that, too. So some flexibility with how Sean Payton could use this guy. He could be a Sutton replacement, or he could be that prototypical, Marquise Colston, big body power slot that Payton has liked in the past. Either way, I think he fits in with what Payton's trying to do. And the more I watch the Broncos, the more I'm pretty sure they need some extra guys there on the outside to help make that offense take another step forward. All right, next up, Los Angeles Chargers. Couple of edge rushers, soon to be free agents, / Joey Bosa with a very cuttable contract. I'm going to go Donovan Ezeraku, very different style of edge rusher than Tuli Tuipulotu. A lot more arm length, a lot more bend and first step juice. So Tuipulotu was kind of more of a technician and could kind of move across the defensive line. I like that pairing, having a guy who can win in different ways to kind of play mismatch on opposing tackles. And again, with back and Bosa, I do this every week. Bosa and Mack potentially both gone this offseason. Obviously, edge is going to be a big spot to look at for the Los Angeles Chargers. All right, next up, the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to go Jonah Monheim, if I could just speak for once. The last couple of weeks have been a huge step in the right direction for him at USC. I feel like he's starting to really get comfortable in that center position where he's playing this year for the Trojans. And I thought Josh Myers was the weak link, but then I saw Elton Jenkins take snap at center, and I was like, oh, sheesh. And Elton Jenkins, I've seen him play really good football at 4 of the 5 offensive line spots. Center, clearly the one spot where I'm going to try to avoid playing him. Missed snaps against the line. It was tough to watch. So let's move on from Josh Myers. Let's get Jonah Monheim in there. I think he's a sizable step in the right direction and also a scheme fit for what Matt LaFleur typically runs with that wide zone blocking scheme. All right, Baltimore Ravens are next up here at 55. I'm going to go interior offensive line for them as well. I'm going to go Donovan Jackson. Look, he had a brutal week against Penn State, but that was him moving to left tackle. I don't see Donovan Jackson as left tackle. To me, he is truly a left guard. In the few games we got to see him at left guard, I was really impressed with what we were going to see. Love the movement skills, 5-star recruit, tons of power. I think there's a lot of ability in Donovan Jackson, specifically at left guard. So I think this frees up the opportunity to move on from Daniel Falele. You can move Makari over to right guard, or you could give Andrew Voorhees the opportunity to win that opportunity, or you stick with Falele. But I do think one more guard could go a long way. And this is one of these teams that just takes these... sometimes these guys just need a little bit of work, and it feels like the Ravens just do it a little bit better than other teams across the league at just developing these players. So I would love to see them take the school set of Donovan Jackson and see what they can do with it for that offensive line. All right, next up, we got the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to go Jahad Campbell here, off-ball linebacker, who's also a really solid pass rusher. So again, we already drafted an edge rusher for the Falcons, but it's been that kind of inept when it comes to getting to the opposing quarterback that I don't hate the idea of getting a linebacker in that mix. Also, Raheem Morris, you're talking about a year where they had, Ernest Jones get 6 sacks a season ago for the Rams, and now he's bounced around the league. Could he take advantage of a similar skill set here in Jahad Campbell, or does he ultimately just try to find a way to get, not Ernest Green? Anyways, he's a linebacker in Seattle now. Traded to the Titans, before that on the Rams, whose name's now escaping me, of course. As soon as you hit the record button, names vanish from your brain. But could he ultimately just get him in the building in Atlanta? If not, Jahad Campbell, I think, could bring a lot of that same skill set to the table, which would be kind of a fun idea for the Falcons team that, again, is looking for some additional pass rush juice. Houston Texans next up here at 57. I'm going to go Shamar Stewart, from Texas A&M, if I could just find him. There we go. Defensive lineman, 290 pounds, and I think that's just one of the spots. That running back and interior defensive line, and now interior offensive line. A couple of spots where I think the Texans roster isn't totally 100% of the way there. Running back too, getting a younger guy behind Mixon, I think could certainly go a long way. But I've been really honing in on defensive line. Did a lot of Braden Fisk mocks last year for Houston. I think Shamar Stewart. A lot of the tools are there, man. Like, you love the frame, you love the arm length, you love the first step quicks. Like, the athletic traits are certainly there. The play is a little up and down for sure. But I think the high marks are there. And if there's anybody who can get more of those, and at least more consistent high water marks out of Shamar Stewart, I think D'Amico Ryans is a great coach to try to get that out of them. And also, like, right now they have a bunch of like run stoppers who are like not even really stopping the run all that great. So any sort of bodies you can get in there to try to fix that problem would go a long way. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers here at 58. I'm going to go safety, Kevin Winston Jr. He's out for the year for Penn State, but I love his tape from last year, and I see a whole lot of Jaquan Brisker. Yes, I know that sounds like helmet scouting, but dude, they play so similar. And also, Brisker hurt with an injury. His is concussion, and Kevin Winston Jr. hurt right now for Penn State. But this is, 1 year deal for Deshaun Elliott, who, like, I'm trying to imagine a better fit to replace that than Kevin Winston Jr. in this class. I'm like, no, that's the guy. Other than like Malachi Starks falls in your lap and you just do something like that. But like, especially here in the second round, who can you get to be that, replacement at the other safety spot? I mean, Kevin Winston Jr. And then that makes Jahdae Barron full-time corner. We're not going to entertain the safety stuff, at least in this mock draft. And I would say you just play him on the outside, let Beanie Bishop keep doing his thing from the nickel. Hopefully he keeps getting better. He's got some splash plays, but he's also got some rough ones on tape. But yeah, I would just love to see the Steelers fully commit to overhauling that secondary, because JPJ's awesome. Beanie Bishop, some splash plays, but as a whole, the unit, I think they can get better. Buffalo Bills are next up at 59. We go back to the corner spot. Maxwell Hairston got hurt after week 4 against Ohio, but better zone coverage corner than man. 6'1", 186 pounds. Kind of checks a lot of those boxes. He's one of those guys that, with the timing of the injury, it wouldn't shock me that he's back in time for senior All-Star weekend, I think is what they technically call him, Senior Bowl, East-West Shrine Bowl, something like that. One of those All-Star games. Or if he's just able to go to the combine, showcase what his fluidity looks like on the on-field drills, plus give us some athletic numbers to kind of go off of. And then, obviously at pro days and team workouts, things like that. So I think he was injured early enough along that we're going to start to get those numbers as we get deeper in this process. And he's going to be a guy that's kind of living in the second, third round mix because he does have the size. I think the athletic testing is going to check out from everything I've heard. And then solid zone coverage background. I think especially for a team like Buffalo that is just pretty much running too high, a lot of cover 2, a lot of quarters. I think he fits in with what they're trying to do. Rasul Douglas getting up there in age makes sense for a natural replacement there. Philadelphia Eagles are next up here at 60. I had a handful of edge rushers I could go with here. JTT, Landon Jackson. I've done both of that. I'm going to go Ashton Gelati this time. Just that power rusher I think could perfectly replace Brandon Graham. That's kind of been my MO here, specifically in the second round for the Eagles. So Jackson, JTT, Gelati. If you're an Eagles fan, tell me who your favorite of those three are and who you would like to see as that Brandon Graham replacement. Back to Buffalo Bills here at 61. I think we've already seen the value that Amari Cooper brings to Keon Coleman. Like, not that Coleman was like abysmal, got to give up on him as an X receiver. I don't think that. But I do think, and then he's still got drops and stuff. But I mean, last week, no Amari Cooper, but the week that you get Amari Cooper and Coleman, 4 catches, 100 plus yards, hits in the end zone. I think you see the value that his athleticism could bring as someone you put in motion, right? Like, make him a Y. And you still push him down the field. You still make him a deep, 50-50 contested ball guy, but just don't let him see press coverage and just get him that head start, especially considering he's still figuring out as a route runner. How do you overcome that? Give him a head start. Get him ahead of steam. So I do wonder if there's a way where if they don't get Amari Cooper back, you draft Jaden Higgins, who's been awesome this year, great size. I think the athletic testing is going to check out. He's been great in the contested catch spots. You make him your sacrificial X, Keon Coleman, get him in motion, make him your Y, and you already have 1,000 different slot receivers on this team / Dalton Kincaid. So I'd be really curious in this. I don't know if the Bills would do this back-to-back years ago in second round receiver. They seem pretty content, just kind of where they were before the year, and then Cooper was available for a very inexpensive trade, so they just did it. I don't know if they're actively looking for an X, but if they are, Jaden Higgins would be a really fun one to add to that team late second round. Next up, the Washington Commanders. Edge, I think it's just been a spot where I've been looking to see this team get better. I was thinking maybe they'll make a move at the deadline, but ultimately they did not. And last week I took a break from going corner edge in the mock, and then I had a bunch of Washington fans be like, "Yeah, no, it'd be great if we went corner and edge." So I cave into your mans. I do think those are the most pressing needs on this team too. So man coverage specialist, and then 6'7", 290-pound. Run, edge setting guy who's going to be a high-level run defender, and what he brings as a power rusher, that's a lot of fun. But also just like that frame and his arm length into a defensive line where Dan Quinn's going to use stunts and twists. This type of like freaky, lanky dude working inside against guard, like that sounds really interesting to me. But you could also go JTT here. You got a couple other edge rushers in the mix, but Landon Jackson's the guy I got the highest grade on of the guys left. And again, just with his long arms, I'd love to see what he could do in those kind of schemed up sim pressures. Those are more schemed up than I would say sim, but anyways, I digress. Let's get on to the Detroit Lions. We're going to actually have a little bit more of an edge run here. We're going to have JTT be the pick here. Excuse me, that was not supposed to be the pick. And actually, I remembered, I thought initially that was a mistake, but that was actually what I wanted to do. They double dipped a corner last year, first and second round, and I don't think, one, if I had done that in any mock, people would have been like, what are you doing? Two guys from the same position, what are you doing? But it is an interesting idea. The Packers do it a ton, and I wonder if Aaron Glenn, Brad Holmes are trying to, try to do some more of that on the defensive side, right? Just like attack a position group so much that it can't possibly be an issue. Again, the Packers do this at receiver, they do it offensive line, and that's why sometimes you see these drafts where it's like, oh, that guy they drafted earlier, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, like Watson's good and he's got some plays, but like Doubs to me was like, oh, okay, that guy, and ultimately I think he made a quicker impact. And then also you could look at some of their edge rushers and whatnot. Kingsley Enagbare feels like the better of the two edge rushers they drafted that year. Carl Brooks might be feeling like the better of the two interior defensive linemen they drafted that year too. So Packers do it. I wonder if the Lions will be able to do it again. So sorry again for my confusion. I forgot I was going to try to illustrate that point. And you have Aiden Hutchinson, but they've already explored with the ideas of moving him inside. So JC Tuimoloau, I think he's the power rusher that you get opposite of Josiah Stewart, who again, a little bit smaller. Maybe he's not an every down player. But then if you do get in a spot where Tuimoloau is, because he does have that prototypical frame, he is good against the run, then you get into pass rush situations where you can unload Tuimoloau, Hutchinson, Lee McNeil, DJ Reader, and Josiah Stewart. And I know that's five guys, so maybe one of those 2D tackles isn't on the field or whatever. A lot of interesting possibilities you could bring about with that pass rush combination. And also DJ Reader getting up there in age. So honestly, like I'd probably say McNeil, Hutchinson, Josiah Stewart, Tuimoloau. And it really comes down to Reader or Tuimoloau as that fourth guy. I'm probably going too long into this for a hypothetical, but who can get to the quarterback faster? That's all I would go. NASCAR package, 4 fastest guys. Tuimoloau, probably a slightly faster guy than DJ Reader. So that's just kind of my validation there. But Lions fans, do you think there's any possibility you double dip once again? First round, second round corner last year, especially now with an Aiden Hutchinson injury. Could you just essentially look at, because I think the Lions are going to look at this and they're going to say, offense is good. Like we could go guard here, but we got Christian Mahogany last year. We're fine. Let's say we're good on offense. Corner was a spot we were trying to address. We double dipped. And now edge is feeling kind of thin. We have to make a trade for Zadarius Smith. That's kind of a Band-Aid fix. Don't want that to be something we have to do next year. Could they double dip at edge? So kind of an interesting possibility. Again, I can't believe I forgot my point. Totally takes the error out of the balloons there. But nevertheless, let me know what you think about that if you're a Lions fan. And let's wrap this up with the Kansas City Chiefs drafting Omar Norman Lott, another new name to the mock drafts. He's just been awesome this year for Tennessee. The more I watch that defensive line at Tennessee, James Pierce Jr.'s turning a corner, but really that whole defensive line has been pretty sick this year, and I've really loved watching them as the year's gone on. And Norman Lott, you're getting a guy who's really good against the run, but also brings a really fun frame with plus athleticism and that pass rush upside. So kind of an intriguing name. And I know Treshaun Wharton's been okay, but could you do better there? Or could you get one more guy in the interior mix to move Chris Jones around, especially as you see this team make a deadline trade because they feel like they need more pass rush juice. FAU hasn't taken that step forward. Maybe we need to move Chris Jones around a little bit more. Well, we can't do that because we don't have interior defensive line depth. Oh, well, now we do with Omar Norman Lott. So just kind of more flexibility there for that Chiefs defensive line. And kind of a fun idea and a guy I wanted to shout out because we haven't gotten the opportunity to talk about him in any of these mock drafts. But Norman Lott, definitely a big-time riser. Really been impressed with that Tennessee offensive line as a whole. Guys, apologies for all my stumbles and mumbles through all this. Not my best mock. I guess I'm looking forward to my birthday too much tomorrow. But if you give me a hard time, you can, actually. It's my birthday weekend, so it's against the rules. But guys, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Who went too high? Who went too low? Who's your favorite squad? And what you think of the picks that I gave your team? Love to hear all those thoughts down below in the comments section. Would love if you guys could hit that like button if you enjoyed today's video. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. I didn't scare you off with all my mishaps. I promise this will be the sloppiest mock I put together this year. But be sure to come back to the channel if you're looking for more NFL draft content, playing more mocks on the horizon. That's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teach, and I'm